Who is Anrakyr the Traveller? Why does he move round, waking up the many Necron tomb worlds? How was his own mind when he woke up after biotransference? And what lets him control the machine spirits under the control of those in the Imperium? Friends, let's find out. And welcome to another 40k video, where we discuss Anrakyr the Traveller. We'll be drawing on various Necron codexes, going over the basic lore, and then in the 5th codex is a short story, which gives you an idea of what this guy can do. Let's delve deep right now. Some see Anrakyr as the ultimate expression of Necron stellar supremacy, an undefeatable warrior whose crusade for unity is nothing short of inspirational. Other Necron nobles see him as a rogue, an opportunist, and a privateer, little better than the plundering vermin of the lesser races. Anrakyr cares not either way, so long as he's able to continue his quest. He storms into battle with his war scythe swinging in vicious, decapitating arcs. Should a towering bastion or mighty enemy bar his path, he'd merely raise his tachyon arrow, and with a thunderclap that could split a mountain in two, erase his target from existence. Should the foe send war engines against Anrakyr, their shock crews may find themselves suddenly unable to control their vehicles' weapons systems. The Traveller can project his consciousness into the machineries of the lesser races and bend their crude spirits to his will, making heavy cannons and energy blasters swivel suddenly to new targeting coordinates before unleashing punishing salvos that blow the enemy's commanders, elite warriors, or accompanying arm assets to smouldering pieces. Nor does Anrakyr fight alone, of course. His legions are seasoned campaigners, all battle-scarred and deadly. At their heart march the Furian Eternals, Necron soldiery that hail from Anrakyr's own crown world, and who have fought at his side for hundreds of years. Few enemies can long withstand the assault of this rarefied cadre of these Necrons, who are a indomitable and resilient force in close quarters as they are at range. Now, what truly makes Anrakyr remarkable is not his skill in battle, however prodigious it might be. Instead, it is his ceaseless campaigning and the goals he seeks to achieve. Anrakyr fights not for the furtherance of his dynasty's greatness at the expense of all others, rather for the greatness of the Necrons as a whole. Upon awakening from the great sleep, unlike so many others of the Necrons, Anrakyr was fortunate enough to find himself hale and whole, with his faculties intact and his will undimmed. It did not take him long to grasp the true situation that the Necrons found themselves in, scattered, lost, and awakening in increments while surrounded by hostile foes, from the Tau to the Emperor's Imperium, from Chaos to the Tyranids. Had the Silent King at this time been around and have declared his return, Anrakyr would have rallied to his banner as the uniter and saviour of the Necron race. Robbed of such a figurehead, however, Anrakyr took it upon himself to become that figurehead. Thus he became the Traveller, leaving the rule of his crown world Feria in others' hands, and taking the vast majority of his mighty military off into the stars. Anrakyr vowed to travel from one Necron world to the next, awakening those that still slumbered and defending those that were under attack, until at last the Necron dynasties were all fully restored and their race could rule the galaxy once again. His self-appointed mission has proven challenging, however, in ways that Anrakyr did not foresee. For one thing, the map and the charts he possesses are so far out of date as to be almost redundant, so it's tremendously difficult to locate each world he wishes to journey to. Even when he does, Anrakyr often finds the cold, dead ruin of tomb complexes already long plundered by the lesser races, like the pyramids in ancient Egypt. At such times he descends with furious violence upon the transgressors, always hoping that word of such examples will spread and dissuade further trespassers. To his frustration, it never does. As Anrakyr's mission drags on, so his ranks are depleted. In order to maintain the momentum of his crusade, the Traveller demands a tithe of military might from every Necron world he encounters, awakens or rescues. Sometimes this is given willingly enough, but on occasion he is accused of extortion and brigandry and must take his reinforcements by force. Such incidents sadden Anrakyr, for he cannot understand how all of his race do not share in his vision or zeal. However, he pushes on regardless, certain that when all at last stand under his banner and his quest is complete, they will understand and applaud his vision. Now, friends, we move on to the short story, which gives us an idea what the Traveller can do when dealing with other forces. In this case, we're talking Cadians, Alaman Rus, and its machine spirit. The Imperial Guardsmen behind the fortress walls had held firm so far, but now the time to strike had come. At Anrakyr's command, the Tomb Blades lanced forward, their Tesla cannons sending great bolts of eldritch lightning arcing through the dug-in ranks of the Cadian 185th, carving bloody channels through the mass of men. The Tomb Blades made 3 passes before the fortress's flak towers had their measure, and even as a hail of high-velocity autocannon shells blew the Necron craft out of the sky, Anrakyr had set the next phase of his attack in motion. Emerging silently from the cover of the ruined city, a dozen ghost arcs sailed down the freshly opened pathways through the wall of bayonets, skimming over the dead and dying to deliver punishing gauze broadsides at point-blank range. The guardsmen were swept aside in disarray, allowing the sinister vessels to disgorge squad after squad of Necron warriors in the midst of the wavering Cadians. Only then did Anrakyr unleash the third attack wave, a legion of his own Firian Eternals, the finest immortals in the galaxy, augmented at the hands of the twisted cryptech Xerath. In perfect unison, they marched into the teeth of the Imperial Guard lines, last fire and heavy bolter shells ricocheting off their armor. Anrakyr led that charge, hacking his way towards an Imperial Guard officer who stood tall beneath his regimental colours. Anrakyr was no more than 20 paces from his target when a deafening explosion tore through the Firian Eternals, blowing a dozen immortals to pieces and knocking the Overlord unceremoniously into the mud. As Anrakyr hauled himself to his feet, he caught sight of his assailant, a Leman Russ battle tank, whose turret was even then coming to bear for another shot. Reaching out his consciousness to the rudimentary spirit of the Leman Russ, Anrakyr saw that the tank was intended to be a masterpiece of design, but he also saw that the technological incompetence had made alterations that had served only to cage the Leman Russ's full efficiency, which might have been on display when it rolled out of an STC long in the history of the Imperium. How fitting then that this abused machine would now take a measure of revenge upon its tormentors. Tightening his metal grip, Anrakyr seized control of the tank's weapon systems. Even technology so basic could not resist his will, and fired point-blank into the Cadian colour party, tearing them to red ruin. A moment later, the systems overloaded completely, bringing the tank to a lifeless halt. With the death of their officer, the heart went out of the Cadians, and the rout began. Yet so completely had the guardsmen been surrounded that few survived to reach the fortress gates. When Xerath found him, Anrakyr stood in the shadow of the disabled Leman Russ, delicately running the finger of one hand over the seized-up Behemoth's armour plates as he appraised the battle yet to come. The augmentations your immortals are performing exactly as projected, the cryptech informed his master. But an assault will inevitably incur heavy loss, Anrakyr replied without turning. The contingency might yet not arise. The codes of battle allow me to extend the option of honourable surrender to their commander. We require neither their destruction nor that of their fortress. Access to the catacombs beneath it are our only priority. He will not accede, Xerath intoned. Every death is a moment in which his reinforcements draw closer. Nonetheless, this is the proper protocol. The commander and his men have fought well for primitives. The offer is to be extended. Unnecessary, Xerath stated, his gaze shifting, turning. Anrakyr saw a shadow fall over the fortress. When it had passed, the defenders were no longer alone. Scores of hooded hunters had materialized amongst the fortress's flak towers and sensor arrays. With keen blades that clove metal like flesh, they silenced the defense turrets, and with the synaptic disintegration, they scouted guardsmen from the ramparts and removed them. Eyes blazing, Anrakyr rounded on Xerath. Death marks. I give no such command. The instruction was mine. Your course held flaws, Xerath replied. Anrakyr gripped his war scythe tightly, but said nothing as he watched the massacre play out. Trapped within the tomb-like walls of their own fortress, the guardsmen were soon slaughtered. Scant minutes later, the great gate of the fortress opened. In frosty silence, Overlord and Cryptech strode inside. As Anrakyr stepped through the gates, the deathmarks assembled in the courtyard sank to their knees, gazes averted. The only being who remained standing was a solitary prisoner. His colonel's uniform blackened and matted with blood, and he quivered with defiant rage and barely controlled terror. Anrakyr gave the slightest of bows before speaking. Adversary. He paused, searching for the correct word. Colonel, you fought well. No shame, should be inferred from this defeat. In response, the captain spat full in the towering overlord's face. You won nothing here. More armies will come, and they will destroy you in the Emperor's name. Is that so? Anrakyr replied evenly, and brought his war scythe about to strike the colonel's head from his shoulders. As the decapitated corpse toppled to the ground, Zeras spoke, his voice tinged with outrage. How dare you? He was to have been mine. That was our accord. My aid in exchange for him. Alive, this is outrageous. You forget your station, Cryptek. Anrakyr interrupted, his voice as chill as the night air. Your payment was forfeit from the moment you manipulated the battle's prosecution, an error compounded through improper method. Your services are necessary, but I shall abide neither your insubordination nor your impertinence. Begone from my sight. Zeras, knowing better than to openly issue further challenge to the Overlord, stalked away. As for you, Anrakyr continued, now addressing the silent ranks of Deathmarks, leave this place. The one who called you has no authority to do so. Do not return unbidden. The Deathmarks made no reply. Deathmarks are basically Necron long-range assassins, but a moment later, calling shadows consumed them, and when the darkness disappeared like smoke on a midnight breeze, the Deathmarks were gone. Suppressing his anger, Anrakyr returned to the matter at hand. The battle was over, but there were still many challenges to overcome if the Tomb World was to be returned to wakefulness. And here we see two aspects of Anrakyr. We see the bargains he makes, that he will not stick to if the other side does not, and we see his ability to jump into, as he says it, the primitive humans' machinery, overtaking the spirits in vehicles like the Illuminus tank. Imagine if he could do that to a Titan. That would be pretty scary for the Imperium's forces. And one note on Zeras as well. He seems to have gone up a rank a little bit in later codexes and later lore. For example, he's involved in the Pariah Nexus, which I've previously recorded a video for on the channel. So he seems to have gone from a bit of a subordinate at this time to standing on his own and doing his own thing like a lot of the Necrons do. On that note, friends, and that little tale, I will wrap up today's video.